I've been doing this investing thing for over 35 years. I've made millions, and for most of that time, I've been a pretty simple guy. Low-cost S&P 500 index fund, set it, forget it, watch it grow. That classic passive investing move, owning a tiny slice of America's top 500 companies, has averaged over 10% a year for a long stretch. The logic is solid. Some stocks crash, but the whole market rises, and you rise with it. I'm not going to pretend that strategy has done me wrong. It made me a millionaire, full stop. But one fine day, I did something I don't do often. I sat down, looked hard at my own portfolio, and made some real changes. Not panic moves, just smart updates. Today, I'm walking you through the 5 specific things I changed because of AI. No hype, just my honest playbook. Number 1. I stopped trusting the S&P 500 blindly. Here's a stat that messed with my head. For every dollar you put into the S&P 500 right now, 40 cents goes to just 10 companies. NVIDIA, Microsoft, Apple, Alphabet, Amazon, Broadcom, Meta, Tesla, Berkshire Hathaway, and JP Morgan. That's a lot of eggs in one very small basket. But it gets wilder. NVIDIA alone, it eats up 7 to 8 cents of every single dollar you invest. Why? Because the S&P 500 is market cap weighted. In plain English, the bigger a company gets, the bigger its slice of your fund becomes. So as these giants grow, you automatically buy more of them, whether you mean to or not. Now, what's fueling that growth? Ignore Berkshire and JP Morgan for a sec. They don't fit the pattern. The other 8, they are all in on AI, aggressively, massively. And you might think, great, AI is the future. But here's the catch. For these companies to justify their current prices, they need to pull in roughly $2 trillion in new revenue. To give you a sense, that's more than NVIDIA, Microsoft, Apple, Alphabet, Amazon, and Meta combined made in all of 2024. See the issue? These companies aren't being valued on what they earn today. They're being valued on a dream. And that dream is all linked to one technology. Worse, they're financing it with a ton of debt. Sam Altman talks about spending $1.4 trillion on AI infrastructure, but OpenAI's yearly revenue is maybe $13 to $20 billion. The math is not mathing. Plus, there's this weird loop happening. Bigger companies attract more passive money, which makes them bigger, which attracts even more money. Deutsche Bank recently said that without AI spending, the US would already be in a recession. That's not a strong foundation, that's a house of cards. So, what's the fix? You might think an equal-weighted S&P 500, where every company gets roughly 2% instead of the top 10 hogging 40%, sounds perfect, right? Less AI bubble risk. But here's the problem I found. Equal-weight funds automatically sell winners and buy losers just to stay balanced. When a stock takes off, think Tesla in its crazy run, the fund trims it and buys stuff that hasn't moved. That's called negative momentum, and it means more trading, higher costs, and potentially lower returns over time. So my actual move? I'm putting less into the S&P 500, but I'm keeping the majority of my stock portfolio in the regular, market cap version. I'm not abandoning it, I'm just making room. Which leads to the big question. Where is that freed up money going? Number 2, I'm betting on the whole world now. Close your eyes for a second. Well, not literally, you're reading. Imagine the next 20 years of stock market returns don't come from the USA. Sounds crazy, right? Because for the last 14 years, America has crushed it. But pull up a chart of global stock market history. In 1900, the UK was the superpower. London was the financial capital. If you were investing then, you'd have thought it was insane to put money anywhere else. And yet, that didn't last. I saw the same thing with Japan in the late 80s. I was traveling there a lot back then. Japanese cars, electronics, tech, they were on fire. The US economy was a mess. High inflation, slow growth. Everyone thought Japan was the future. Betting against Japan seemed stupid. But then America bounced back, and Japan stalled. The lesson? No country stays on top forever. leadership shifts. And when you only buy the S&P 500, you miss out on giants like TSMC, Samsung, Toyota, Tencent, AstraZeneca, and HSBC. Real companies, real revenue, just not headquartered in the US. So how am I investing globally? I use Trading 212. That's my broker. There's a fund called VWRP, one ticker. It gives you exposure to about 3,700 companies across 45-plus countries: US, UK, Europe, Japan, China, India, you name it. Now, yes, if you peek inside, it's still heavy on US names today. But here's the beauty. A global fund automatically rebalances over time. If China or India starts outperforming, the fund adjusts. If the US keeps leading, it adjusts for that too. I don't have to predict anything. The fee is tiny, 0.19%, or about $1.90 per $1,000 invested per year. If you're in the US, look at Fidelity's International Fund, FSPSX. And if all this sounds like a headache, Trading 212 has pre-built model pies, professional portfolios for different risk levels. Number 3, I'm backing the underdogs, where the real opportunity is. The single best wealth-building lesson I've ever learned: you don't get rich following the crowd, you get rich being early. So while I'm protecting myself from an AI bubble, I also want to benefit from AI, just not in the obvious way. Let me break down how I see the market. There are 4 zones. First, the crowded zone. Big companies with expensive valuations. Nvidia, Tesla, Meta. Everyone is already here, including passive investors. Second, the defensive zone. McDonald's, Walmart, Coca-Cola. Boring, reliable, predictable cash flow. Warren Buffett loves this zone. Valuations aren't cheap, but they're fair. Third, the speculative zone. Small, hyped-up companies with no revenue to speak of. Beyond Meat, Peloton during the craze. I stay away. That's closer to gambling. Then there's the 4th zone. I call it the overlooked zone, and this is where I see a ton of AI opportunity. Here's my thinking. The big guys in the crowded zone are all betting that whoever spends the most to build the best AI model wins everything. But what if that's wrong? I'm seeing more and more startups and mid-sized companies let users choose between different AI models inside their software: Claude, ChatGPT, Gemini, whatever. And those models are getting really close in ability. So the deciding factor becomes price, which leads to a price war. Great for us users, terrible for the companies that borrowed billions to build the models. Think of it like gasoline. One station sells it for $1.50 a liter, another sells slightly better gas for $3. Most people will buy the cheap stuff because it does the same job. When a technology becomes good enough and interchangeable, the value doesn't stay with the builders. It flows to the users, the companies that apply AI smartly without drowning in debt. That's why I'm backing the underdogs. Small and mid-cap businesses don't need to win the AI arms race. They just need to solve real problems at lower cost. So I'm putting money into small and mid-cap funds, and I'm actively looking for AI startups to invest in. If I'm wrong, I lose a little being early. If I'm right, massive upside. Number 5, I'm hedging against the system. Hello, gold. Every major leap in technology creates opportunity, yes, but it also creates instability. AI isn't just changing companies, it's changing power, currencies, and trust. That's why I'm increasing my gold reserves, and I'm not alone. Check this out. China's gold buying between 2009 and 2025 was steady. Then, in the last couple of years, they went nuts, buying more than ever. Why? A lot of people think they're trying to reduce reliance on the US dollar. They're building something called the Gold Corridor to store gold across different locations and use it for trade, especially with other BRICS nations: Brazil, Russia, India, South Africa. And it's not just China. For the first time since 1996, gold has overtaken U.S. Treasuries as the world's largest foreign reserve asset held by central banks. Here's the big recent change. As of 2025, gold was reclassified as a Basel III Tier 1 asset. Fancy words, simple meaning. Banks can now treat gold the same as cash or U.S. Treasuries on their balance sheets. Before this, they couldn't count its full value. Now, most big institutions kept about 20% of reserves in gold. But Bank of America just published new guidelines saying that number should be closer to 30%. That 10% increase drives up demand because you can't print more gold. Some people think gold could double in 5 years. I don't think that's crazy. How do I buy gold? 2 ways. First, physical gold. I'm old school. I like holding it. That's my long-term insurance. Second, I dollar cost average into the iShares Physical Gold ETF on Trading 212. That gives me flexibility to buy gradually and move things around. To be clear, I'm not going all in on gold, just a small strategic slice, the same way countries and major financial institutions are doing. If you want me to do a full deep dive on gold in a future video, smash the like and subscribe button. Let's say 150,000 likes and 100K subscribers, and I'll make it happen. Number 5. I'm making sure I'm never forced to sell. The biggest mistake I see young investors make? Not keeping enough cash on hand. Then something happens, job loss, emergency, whatever, and they're forced to sell their investments at the worst possible time, usually a market crash. Even as an older guy, I still think about this constantly, especially if we're in an AI bubble. And here's something interesting. Warren Buffett, the greatest investor alive, is sitting on a mountain of cash right now. As of early 2025, he had over $347 billion in cash and equivalents. He's been piling it up for a couple of years. Why? Because he's a value investor. He only buys when the price makes sense. And right now, he doesn't see many opportunities worth the risk. I'm following that lead. I'm holding slightly more cash than usual, not because I'm scared, because I want options. If the market crashes, I say when, not if, because it always happens. I don't want to be a forced seller. I want to be a buyer. Having cash also lets you invest when everyone else is panicking. I learned that during the dot-com crash in the early 2000s. I focused on building money-making skills on the side, generated fast cash, and invested it into a cheap market. That move changed my life. On that note, I'm actually teaching a free live online event soon about the fastest path to making $10,000 a month online. No startup capital, no business experience required. My honest thoughts, no BS. Look, I've seen people wait years for a perfect market drop, and while they waited, they missed out on massive gains. That's not my style. My strategy is simple. Most of my money still goes into the S&P 500. If AI keeps driving growth, I'm in the room where it happens. But to protect myself from a potential bubble, I'm diversifying into global markets, small and mid-cap stocks, gold, and cash. The truth is, nobody knows what the market will do next. Not me, not the experts, and not the AI. So instead of trying to predict, I'm preparing for both outcomes, growth and a downturn. As always, I'm Sam, sharing the lessons I learned the hard way so you don't have to. Please subscribe to my channel for more such useful information. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.